the same as if you downloaded it. Import everything. You got HUD and scenes. There's one thing you'll notice, that you need Text Mesh Pro. If you haven't already done this in your project, you need to import the TMP Essentials. That's what the errors there were to do with the Text Mesh Pro. Until you've got that installed, then it's fine. Now you want to go here to look at the demo. It's actually in scenes here. There's one problem that I've noticed. You don't get this in HDRP or URP starter projects, because it's just a fresh built-in project. If I press play now, you might notice there's one more error. Now this is, you're trying to read the input class, but and you can't move the camera around in the demo. This is to do with the settings here, project settings. It's in player, down to here. This is purely for using the demo. Okay, this is for the HUD system demo only. You need this. Okay, so you now have both installed. Got no errors to begin with. Now the demo scene should run fine, and the camera's moving. Okay, so let's look at a few things. Basically, the way it's set at the moment, to get the demo scene, you need to click on and off these various objects. Here we got two health cubes. They're basically just cubes with the health bars on them. They start at 0 health. The way these work, they start at 0. You can start them at 100. Let's have a look at them. It's basically, these are the two very basic demos for the value bar and the numbers system. So you've got the numbers pop-ups, you've got a pop-up launcher that is being triggered from pop-up test, and you've got a target. The target is containing the value bar. The way everything works is you've got the display manager. If you look up here, widget prefabs. So we've got these two, we've got health and health grad. So when you look at here, this target, this string is the widget ID that corresponds to here, health, where there is a prefab set for this prefab ID. So we go to here, this is the health bar panel fade. It's actually the current value I was looking at. You could set this to 100 also, the current value for the value bars. I should do a whole video on value bars and on damage numbers as I fly through this. But basically this is a canvas with a UI widget attached to it. This one also has a value bar script attached to it, which allows it to function as a value bar. There's a slider, a background. There's two sliders actually, because one's the primary and the second is the trail. So anyway, when we look at this, you'll see how that prefab has changed into this one. So I'll miss it. Hold on. They kind of both shot up. It's done with random numbers are called to damage, and they're positive or minus. But yeah, it starts at 100 and it actually loads up to 100 from 0, I just noticed. The other one starts at 0, and it's just random numbers being called to create the damage numbers. Yeah, that's interesting. But you can set these however you want. I'll possibly change the code actually, because you saw how it went from 0 to 100. It was kind of sliding up. It's got a trail factor on the value bar. So you can make the slider speed of the current automatic. So this should, 0 means there's no, 0 means it's very slow. Speed, use smoother, take smoother off. 0 means it's infinitely slow actually. That speed, higher is faster. So if I actually switch the smoother off, you can see it started at 100, but look, it also jumps around. So the trail is now, when it loses health, the trail goes down slowly, but the actual health is kind of jumping through it. This is a prefab. These are prefabs within the demo. Prefab widgets, so like health panel and health panel fade. What actually happens is the display manager spawns instances of these. So you've got a pop-up canvas and a target canvas. And the pop-up canvas is used for the numbers. Whoops. These pool as well, so you're not getting too many. There's a pool of these. Should have pooling on by default. That's why what you're seeing, some of them are just grayed. But anyway, that's the health bars and the numbers. Oops. I mean, the whole system is that you can view these from different angles. So as your 3D objects move, it's not a billboard. It's thinking more. I mean, obviously it's all in 2D, but these are always forward-facing 2D wise. So it always gives an impression of being at the angle of the camera. Very similar to a billboard, which is turning to the camera, but it's slightly different. It's all in one screen space. There's one canvas or two, this pop-up canvas and the target canvas, where instances of the prefab, because the pop-up panel images, they're also prefabs. So the numbers also along the lines of this, where you have a canvas, an image and a text, and you have the UI widget, which is you said it will find its own canvas, value bars, images, text. All it's really got is one text on this for the number. The image isn't required. You can change these images in code if you want. That's why we could put this image into here, and then you have a reference to it within the widget. Okay, but it's not actually doing that. The value bars probably do need that reference to the value bar. So as its UI widget here, value bar, see the value bar has a reference to the value bar. That it can store multiple value bars in the list. You can stack these up. We could have 2 value bars. It's a bit harder to achieve. You probably have to nest just so you can have a second slider. I think we'll be with it. That's not looking too configure. I think that'll take a while. I'll do this in a separate thing, but you can have multiple value bars attached to a widget. That's totally possible. So you can have like all your different things for the one object player, NPC or whatever, can have these value bars. Yeah, and they're quite flexible. I mean, you can see a gradient on this one. You can change these backgrounds of them. I actually think this is better with smoother on, and try really fast smoother. I mean, they're flexible in these to the extent that you can change the trail. See that kind of there is a smoothing to it, but it's just very fast now. But it's not, you know, it has a smoother on it, and the trail is not so smooth. You can make the trails fast if you want, like the kind of black space behind it. You change the color of those in the all kinds of things you can do with the value bars, and also the numbers. The numbers have a huge amount of variation based on these data. Most of the numbers are done with effects. These things, you can see this is the effects time. Use the scale. Use the scale. I mean, there's like use offset. So you got scale, offset, rotation, group fade, and text gradient. Obviously, it doesn't have to be. This is actually a different one. Let's find the. Oh, these are for the numbers. Yeah. So I mean, with the value bar is actually set in the value bar. Sorry to make this confusing, but if we look at the value bar within the widgets, fade gradient, so actually that's the gradient applied to the value bar. We can change the colors of this if we want, you know. I mean, they're just normal gradients. It doesn't have to be the boring standard one. It could be like this. So when we play this, we see the other bar. What you'll notice is when it loads up, the colors will get a lot of negative numbers. So you can just put gradients like any gradient on it. Yeah, they're very flexible as to what you can have on the value bars. Yeah, you can have any kind of gradient you want on there, transparent, anything that fits within the gradient. Yeah, standard gradient pop-up for a gradient here. There's also this confusion. What we've got here are these scriptable objects. Now for the effects of numbers, the motion of numbers, pop-up numbers, is all expressed here. So I'm trying to see which is which. I think if you look at the prefabs, rather the widgets, for a pop-up panel image, say the one that's this star, let's have a look at the using profile much. The value bars, the pop-up, so there's lots to take in. The pop-up image, and what it is, yeah, sorry, it's the effect datas, the effect flash image. This controls what you see when those numbers, look at these in action. And it's this that's controlling the floating numbers. So see the way they wiggle around a bit, and they fade in and out, and they grow and they shrink. Yeah. Okay, so you can apply this to any of the numbers. What we're using is scale. We're using the offset, we're using rotation and group fade. We can also use, this should be real time. You should see the colors change. Can you see the colors? Now, the pop-up numbers can have a gradient on them also, which can be changed to anything you want. We can stop it doing fading. See, they're not fading now. Can you see the star numbers are not fading? It's because they're fading in line with this fade curve. It's fading them out, it's fading them in. You can apply whatever curve you want. The rotation also, they're rotating, they're wobbling. You see, this is without rotation. Yeah, if you don't want your numbers to rotate, you see they're not rotating now. The offset is essentially how far away from the object they are. So in this, it's this brown cube. The offset is actually like, so they're kind of shooting stars. Can you see what I mean? They're kind of moving. Can you see they're moving away from the object as they spawn? So they pop and then they move to the right, up and right, which is here. X and Y curves for offset are kind of making the move up and to the right, or you can just switch that off. They don't, they just stay in the same place relative to the object. It's the object offset, is the offset usually in this. Try it without rotation. So these are a bit more boring, but maybe it's clearer now that they just flash, they're growing inside and fading. It's an interesting effect, isn't it? You know, they're not spreading out so much because they're always spawning relative to the object. The spawning is further controlled by the widgets for, I think actually in this case, the prefab of the cube health. Okay, it has a pop-up launcher. There's no offset data being used in this cube health. So let's stop it for a minute. The whole system is based on offsets and other things in scriptable objects. So look at the pop-up launcher. Yeah, the pop-up launcher for that cube health it's not actually using the prefab. So this, you see, they're not blue. These actual, you know, non-prefabs in the scene. We've got target offset 100, which is one of these. So you've got a camera offset and an object offset. The object offset is in the 3D world space. So it's saying like 10 units above the, and I think it's centimeters in this, 10 centimeters above the cube, place the object, and 100, the camera offset is in pixels, so another 100 up. What this means is when those numbers spawn, you're not on top of the object. Can you see they're not just, they're spawning above the object, not on top of the cube. Obviously you can zoom in. There's a kind of scaling algorithm going on as well. So you can keep it always so that relative to the object, then you know the offset of the numbers, and that's scaled also. Sure. the pop-up offset data. Now this is additional. The pop-up offset data for a pop-up, i.e. a temporary UI image that pops up on top of an object within the 3D world. These have an offset pattern. So when we see this one, can you see it's in X, Y, and Z? One spawning to the left, above, and to the right. This kind of pattern. Yeah. That's a pop-up offset data pattern. In this case is sequence forward. We could make this sequence backwards. Now watch them, they should go the other way. Can you see it starting on the right? It's going to the middle top. And to the left, that's sequence backwards. Random is just all over the place. They can then spawn on top of each other. There's a bit of an algorithm to stop that immediately happening, like the exact last spot. It just becomes a bit more likely. We could change that because we had with the effect. It's kind of floating. Which one was it? Flash image. If we had the offsets, use offset. Okay. So, you know, this again, this kind of spaces them out because they're moving. That's why these things are useful. That these numbers are then not on top of each other. And with the more random pattern that we're using here, that's kind of how the system's working. We could put it back to a sequence forward. That's how it was loosely. I think we have more rotation, so they're wobbling around a bit. But it's all about spreading out these numbers, pop-up numbers, using offset datas. Once you set these up and you're happy with the pattern, like this is using the same. This is using an effect for the pop-up numbers. I imagine it's this one here. So it's got use scale. So let's try this without scale. Can you see those numbers are changing? Were changing in scale. Now they're just big. They were getting big and getting smaller based on this curve. You can totally change these as well. Can you see those numbers? But then it gets small a bit too quick. So make it add a bit more motion to the numbers so they get small, big, small. You see these twirling numbers on this one. Just moving around with the WASD. Let's make them bigger anyway. Oh no, that's the offset scale. Whoops. It's a bit bigger numbers. But yeah, there's all the control of these. It's from here. They're rotating, so we've pulled the rotation from them. That's the rotation is actually the number spinning around. Okay, so look again. They're overlapping with the other numbers, but the rotation is the spinning, the number spinning. Okay, that's the rotation. So if I switch that off, the numbers stop rotating. It's the offset that's making them go round like they are. Without the offset, they're just doing this. They probably have the sequence forward 1, 2, 3 spacing. Same as the other one. But it's the offset that's really creating the space with the numbers doing this. I don't think there is a group fade for them. We could use a text gradient. We can make them gradients, which you can set to whatever you want. So there's tons, well, there's that kind of flexibility in the numbers. You can create very different numbers within the same game. Different numbers for different things could have, you know, the same different things happening. controlled with these scaling offset. The basic scaling, the panel info data, it's when you zoom out a huge amount. See, I'm zooming out. Look at the value bar. That value bar is still there. The numbers are still there. I'm miles out, you know. That's suggesting that they have no scale out on them. So let's have a look at that. These would be on the actual widgets themselves. So you've got the health bar panel has one. Scaling data none. So one of these health bar scales, the gradient one, I think, now has a panel 1000 scaling on it. So let's see what that looks like. So we've got both our health bars. Can you see it's a bit more scaled now anyway? I'm not actually seeing that much. I think because what are they using? Health bar panel fade and fade gradient. So my widget's got health bar panel fade. On the widget, we've got the scaling data on the widget. Set that to, yeah, whoops. So now, look at, yeah, see this one is scaling now. That's the joy. This is what the system's quite a lot about, is that you've got control over this kind of scaling. So you see that health bar, it can get to a point where you can't see it, so you're far away from an object or an NPC and you don't see the information. It doesn't have to be a value bar, it could be like its name or other values like level or stuff, you know. Just an indicator of what the object is. Any kind of identifiers. You can, you know, stack tons of text and images onto these. And it just scales them nicely. So as you zoom around in the 3D world, you can see that health bar is scaling. The other one's just always the same size. And it kind of scales. That's, there's a few features on those. There's a few other things within the system. Cube hello. Showing this object does not have a widget, did not have a widget ID. For it to display anything, it has to have a widget ID that is on the display manager here. A classic, just a cube with hello on it. Not sure what the point of that is. There's some stuff on this, like you've got an occluder wall and occlusion set up to demonstrate occlusion. It's another one of the issues with the straight billboard. You can have issues with occlusion. Okay, that's a bit of an issue. if you try this with a straight billboard, it's very hard to control the occlusion in ways that you might want, like even just switching it off, because hide if invisible, so I can switch that off and it will have no occlusion. So, which is really hard to do with a standard billboard actually. See, there is now no occlusion on that object because it's behind the wall, because we set the this hide if invisible is what occludes the Hello UI square canvas associated with it. I'll switch off display mode, it's pretty block, but there's a cube behind it, but that's the that's all the UI covering the object with no offset, so it's completely covering this cube. That's hello cube. Empty. You don't even need an object. There's no object there. Can you see it's an empty game object? Alright, as long as it has a target script on it. And it's switched on. It will create the target UI that will spawn. Yeah, just to see there is no object, there's no physical mesh object there, it's an empty object, but it's just a game object with a target, so you can create UIs linked to empty objects. You don't need a mesh to show it at all. Spawner. Whoops, I should have switched it on. I can switch it on in game. Here we go. You can, while it's running. Spawner's spawning all these things. So script, can you see what's changing? It's saying the numbers on it. So you can change the text on these. These are to do with the scripts. The demo scripts aren't incredibly well written. They're a bit kind of hacky looking things that just have random positions for these. But if you want to get into the scripts, then yeah, here's some of them. It's getting a reference to the target component of the game object. It's spawning at random positions. It can then change its sprite. If we had an alternative sprite actually on this random spawner, it would use it. I'll try and affect that. A spawner missing main sprite. Chicken, kaboom, and a chicken. Oh, and it's got to be switched on again. Okay. Oh, do you know what? That's not wired up properly. I think there's another one that is. I think what the problem there is, this is to do with the widget. See, I've set these up great, haven't I? Text images. So we need, this is the prefab for the target panel that they're going to use. It has a reference to its image. Now we're going to use this spawner, and the images should also be changing. So you've got, it's just to show you've got control over everything. You know, because it's spawning the same target widget ID, but it's changing the sprite, and it's also altering the text, so saying the number of it, and it's alternating the text, which is something you can do in code. I think once you get into the scripting of it, there's things like on these on some of these objects like the spawner, you know, there's just this spawn target test. It's spawning a cube target, which then has a target script on it, spawning those. But it's the code on the spawn target test. It's the same with this cube health. They have these little random movement scripts. I see they follow each other. And then pop-up tests is a script that's calling the pop-up launcher. It's getting the component. Their targets, the display objects are either pop-up launchers or targets. So it's finding its value bar from its target, and then it's just adding current delta change to the health or value, or it's spawning pop-up widgets with different damage numbers on them. These are the scripts. I'll probably do another video on the various scripting options later on. But that's just a bit of a walkthrough of the demo script, just to get a feel for what's going on. There's a bit to take in. I'll put some more videos up and explain everything in more detail a bit later. That's just briefly how the system works. Okay, thanks for watching. Cheers.